Do you even know who owns this plaza? Move your car, now! She said it like it was a fact of nature, like gravity. Her manicure tapped the steering wheel, her sunglasses were obviously 5 figures, and her laugh, thin, practiced, sawed through the morning air. I remember thinking, that's the exact voice of someone who thinks rules are optional. Little did she know. That sentence would start a chain of events that ended with her name in court records and her headlines in the local paper. My car was an old Toyota with duct tape on the bumper. She pulled up in a black SUV with tinted windows and an Armani scarf knotted like a halo. The sign above the space read, "Reserved CEO." A cheap plastic placard swung on my dash like a prop. "Reserved CEO." I had picked it up as a joke from a company retreat 5 years ago when we were a tiny startup in Seattle. The sticker had become a joke in my friend group. Nobody ever expected it to become a weapon. "You're too stupid to even see what's coming," she said, smiling as if she'd announced the weather. "Move it," she added. "People like you shouldn't be parked here." I dug in my pockets and found the placard. I listed it like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat and set it on the dashboard where the sun hit it and flashed right into her sunglasses. For a heartbeat, she blinked. For a heartbeat, the world tilted. "What is that?" she asked. "Reserved CEO," I said. My voice was quiet, but my hands weren't. "You see it, right? CEO." She laughed like I was a joke in a show she hadn't heard yet. "That's hilarious," she said. "You expect me to believe you're—" She stopped, because people were looking. The valet had his phone in the air. A barista put her latte down and took a step closer. Her smile froze. Then it broke into a different thing, cold amusement. By the time she had finished, she said, "I'm going to take you for everything you've got." Those words were not about a parking space anymore. They were a promise. Have you ever been dismissed in public the way a coupon gets tossed? Have you ever felt the blood move from your ears to your teeth? Tell me in the comments. But I had no idea what I was about to discover, and I had no idea how badly she wanted to make me disappear. Little did she know, setting me off would pull apart threads tied to a pile of dirt she'd been burying for years. It started as a minor thing, a parking space, a placard, a smug woman who smoked after her coffee like a queen eating grapes. I should have walked away. Anyone who's tried to be reasonable with unreasonable people knows sometimes your patience costs more than your dignity. But what happened next was the kind of escalation you only see in bad movies or on Reddit when people post screenshots that go viral. She called the building manager. "That man is trespassing," she declared into her phone, as if adjectives alone made law. The manager came over and tapped on my window. "Ma'am, this is a reserved space," he said. "Reserved. For who?" I asked. "For the CEO," she said, parroting the sign as if the phrase made it true. "She lives here. I have documented proof." She held up an email on her phone like a priest showing a relic. If this were a less petty person, this would have been done. Parking enforcement would have towed me. I would have paid a stupid fee. She would have gone on her way with one more small victory to pin to her lapel. But she was not content with small victories. She loved the performance. "You're gonna make this difficult, aren't you?" the building manager muttered, trying to balance a clipboard and a world he had signed up for. "Make it difficult," she echoed, and there was a hunger in her voice. "I'm going to make him pay." That night, I found messages I didn't know I had. A text from a guy I barely remembered praising my honesty, but the message was quoted in a screenshot on a private Instagram story at a party she hosted. Someone had filmed the whole parking confrontation and captioned it, "Trash in a CEO spot?" In the comments, someone tagged her and wrote, "Girl, destroy him." What started as a minor public humiliation was clearly being weaponized for entertainment. But this woman, Vivienne Hart, was more than empty cruelty. She had money, deep, suffocating money. Her father had left an $847 million estate, and she lived like a brasher, newer version of that fortune. She owned property in Bellevue, a townhouse in Seattle, and an Aspen vacation home where she posted photo after photo of snow and champagne. Wealth lubricated her social life and polished over inconvenient facts. She also liked winning in public. The discovery that would change everything didn't come from the video. It came from a backup file I rescued from an old thumb drive, an account I barely remembered. I plugged it into my laptop and found a PDF titled Reserve Dashboard Placards Order History. It was a list from the manufacturer with bulk orders to Vivienne's events company. 500 reserved CEO placards shipped to Vivienne Hart Events, Bellevue HQ. Someone had mass-produced the exact placard on my dash and scattered them at her glam events, safe in the knowledge that a gag would always be funny. Unless someone used one for real. You won't believe what I found next. In the PDF's margins were notes, handwritten, game plan, public shaming. Paul will plant. Do not let them sue. Bury them. Paul was a name I recognized, a lobbyist and friend of hers who'd been seen around dizzy charity galas. There were also screenshots, 47 deleted messages I'd recovered from a cloud backup, detailing strategies for neutralizing people who didn't belong to their circles. People who ate their lunch. As one message read, "He's laughing now," another said, "He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless." My chest went cold. I had been a funny gag in a game to them. From there, I dug. Anyone who's ever tried to fight an entitled, wealthy person knows the first thing you find is how many people thought they couldn't be touched. The second is how many little favors are owed to keep them untouchable. The third is that the truth usually has a paper trail, if you know where to look. I called Margaret Chen, a divorce attorney who had once told me, "The worst crimes are committed with good linens." Margaret had a reputation for being ruthlessly precise. "This is the most sophisticated asset protection I've seen in 30 years," she said when I slid the PDFs across her desk. "But folks like Vivienne slip because they're sloppy with social." "She's going after me because she can," I said. "She wants to ruin me for showing her up." "Then we'll ruin the fun," Margaret said, "and we'll do it carefully." We moved slow. That was Margaret's first order. Let Vivienne think she was winning. "The best revenge," Margaret said, "is always like a chess game. Sneaky, patient, inexorable." But there were setbacks. 3 moments where I thought the plan would fail. 1. A subpoena request for Vivienne's event records was delayed for 3 months because her lawyers argued privilege. The judge almost denied our motion. I remember sitting in the hallway of the courthouse in downtown Seattle, my hands shaking. "If this gets tossed," I said to Margaret, "it's over." She smirked. "Not if we have patience and receipts." Second, my laptop crashed 2 days before Margaret was going to show the recovered texts in a preliminary hearing. I had been sloppy and hadn't backed up properly. I wanted to scream. But then I remembered I had uploaded a folder to Google Drive the week before. "Your future self is better looking," I muttered and clicked restore. Third, an ally, Tom, a security guard who'd filmed Vivienne paying for favors, texted he was scared and wanted to go silent. He admitted the company that owned the plaza had threatened him. Little did he know, the threats were recorded too. I had a Ring doorbell capture of a man from her team handing him an envelope. We used that to get him back on side. "You were right to send it," he said, voice small. "I was just scared." We kept pulling strings. Margaret had a friend at a forensic accounting firm in Bellevue. We found hidden transfers in the event company, shell companies with names like Larkspur Holdings LLC that funneled money. There were invoices that didn't match services and emails where Vivienne joked about moving assets before anyone notices. There were also those 47 deleted messages that made me sick. "Just play dumb," read one. "2 years of lies will mask the trail." What made it real was not the numbers alone, though we did find $12 million moved through a network of small transactions. And it wasn't just the messages. It was the culture she built. Hire friends, pay favors, bury receipts. She had weaponized social humiliation to shield a larger pattern of theft and abuse. By the time we filed for a temporary restraining order and an injunction to stop any reputational campaign, Vivienne was already on the offensive. She did not like losing the narrative. By Christmas, I'll be sipping champagne in Tuscany with your money, she declared in a voicemail she left on my work phone. She said it like she already owned the plane ticket. He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless. It was petty, and it was terrifying. The courtroom the day our motion was heard smelled like coffee and anxiety. Reporters clustered outside the courthouse steps as if they were bees waiting for a hive to split. Margaret wore her usual blazer and a look that said she was ready to pull teeth if necessary. "Your Honor," Margaret began, "we believe Miss Hart has engaged in a targeted campaign to defame and financially harm Mr. Davis, using social, financial, and personal leverage." "I need to see evidence," the judge cut in. "Judges do that. They trim excess like gardeners." "Substantiate the claim." Margaret smiled. "We have 47 deleted messages recovered from backups that show Miss Hart's team discussing targeted humiliation campaigns. We have bank records showing $400,000 in questionable transfers tied to events billed as community outreach, but actually used to pay off security staff. We have Ring doorbell footage, time-stamped, showing Miss Hart arranging a tow that never happened. She turned and set a folder on the judge's desk. The judge opened it and read. The room seemed to inhale. "According to this disclosure, Miss Hart," the judge said slowly, "you have attempted to hide assets through multiple shell companies. There is evidence here of potential fraudulent conveyance. I'm placing a temporary freeze on transfers and ordering full disclosure." Vivienne's face turned. It went from a carefully arranged mask of amusement to something like flint. "You don't understand," she hissed at Margaret as cameras clicked. "This is harassment." "Tell me," the judge said, looking at her over the rims of his glasses, "are you the one who said, 'I'm going to take you for everything you've got' in a voicemail we have on record?" She swallowed. "That was a joke," she said, oddly small. "It was taken out of context." "Context matters," the judge replied, "but actions matter more." What followed was a slow, methodical unraveling. The freeze meant Vivienne couldn't liquidate assets. Subpoenas forced her event company to produce invoices. The forensic accountant traced payments to offshore accounts that had spikes in activity coinciding with tax filings and estate transfers. We found that some of those funds had been used to send expensive gifts to a handful of community leaders. Favors to ensure silence. And then, surprise number 2. An internal whistleblower from one of her charity boards sent an email. "She funnels money through us to pay personal vendors," it read. "I have bank statements." The statement showed an invoice for an art installation that was actually a private mural in her office. Another invoice listed caterers who never performed at public events, but who had been paid. The media loved the story. People who had scanned Vivienne's Instagram for aspirational content suddenly felt betrayed. We saw op-eds and think pieces about the cruelty of the elite and how social capital shields bad actors. The narrative flipped from my humiliation to her accountability. In court, Vivienne's arrogance crumbled under the weight of evidence. The judge read aloud a message we'd recovered. "By Christmas, I'll be sipping champagne in Tuscany with your money." You could hear a pin drop. Then the judge read another sentence from the inbox. "He'll never figure it out. He's completely clueless." Vivienne's lawyer tried to paint it as a social mistake, words taken by an angry ex-employee. But one by one, witnesses confirmed the chain. The security guard's video of the envelope, the ring footage of her paying for a non-existent tow, the invoices that matched no public event. The company that printed the placards testified they had sold a batch to Vivienne Hart Events and had a shipping log. Vivienne's face was pale when the shipping log hit the bench. Then came what I had hoped would be the final, theatrical note. A restrained email from Vivienne to her events manager, accidentally CC'd to a public mailing list. In it she wrote, "If anyone tries to litigate, we bury them with PR. Make sure Tom gets paid off." Her lawyer tried to object. But the damage was done. The room felt smaller, as if a wall had collapsed. The judge's ruling was not sloppy revenge. It was precise and it was legal. He ruled the freeze should stay, ordered an independent examiner to audit Vivian's finances, and referred certain transactions to the state attorney for possible criminal investigation. He also granted an injunction preventing her from posting any new content that targeted me. She sat back in the courtroom, stunned and betrayed in kind of way she'd never experienced. People on social media celebrated. Some said we had weaponized the law in my favor. Others asked if I had gone too far. Tell me, was I wrong to go after her like I did? What would you have done if that had been you? Drop your answer below. The aftermath was predictable and not. Vivian tried to hire a crisis PR firm and posted a photo of herself at a charity brunch as if nothing had happened. It was awkward. Her followers dwindled. The prosecutor's office didn't immediately indict. Those things take time. But the audits were thorough. They uncovered transfers that could not be explained. The board of one of her favorite nonprofits voted to remove her. A boutique in Bellevue offered her a temporary job in the window dressing department. An ironic twist that later made a viral headline. Rich socialite now folding shirts. I know that sounds petty. Some people said I had ambushed her. Others said I had exposed a predator. The truth is murkier. I didn't start with thoughts of legal ruin. I started with pride and a joke placard and, if I'm honest, a desire not to be publicly dismissed. But as evidence kept surfacing, the question became bigger. Do you let someone weaponize humiliation unchecked? Or do you fight, even if the fight costs you? A few months later, in a local paper, her net worth was listed in an article about the audit. The headline read, "Socialite's estate under review." The number had asterisks and notes, subject to forensic review. The eye-catching number, $847 million, wasn't gone, but much of her mobility was. With bank accounts frozen and contracts questioned, Vivian found herself having to justify her lifestyle to auditors instead of to her Instagram followers. Me? I sold the old Toyota a year later and bought a used Tesla. I started dating someone, Sarah, a patent attorney who laughed when I told her I had been technically broke, but creatively solvent. She said something that stuck. A person who can orchestrate a case like this is never really broke. We laughed. We grieved. We moved on. There are things I still wonder. Was I cruel? Did I stoop to her level? Was it justice or performance? The truth is both. Justice often looks like the most theatrical version of accountability. And sometimes, the person who plays the high roller at brunch is the person who made the poorest choices, ethically speaking. If you ever feel small in front of someone who thinks they're bigger than the world, remember that paper trails are stubborn things. Technology remembers. Ring doorbells don't care about status. Cloud backups keep what people think they deleted. So here's the final thing I learned, and the life lesson I don't want to sound preachy about, but it's true. The difference between being hurt and being harmed is whether you let the harm define you. I could have paid the toll fee, shrugged, and moved on. Instead, I checked receipts, asked for help, and let the court decide. Maybe the world doesn't always care. Maybe sometimes it's people with patience, with a lawyer who knows the law, and a Ring video you saved, who tip the scales back towards something resembling fairness. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. Be honest. Some people think I went too far. Some people say it was long overdue. Was I right to drag everything into the light? If you want more stories where the little guy turns the game on the big players, and trust me, I have dozens. Subscribe and hit the bell. I've got videos about dishonest landlords, greedy heirs, and one about a neighbor who tried to steal a backyard with forged survey maps. Until then, keep your receipts, back up your texts, and if someone tells you you're too stupid to even see what's coming, maybe prove them wrong in the quietest way possible.